Okay, going back again. This is part 3. How to avoid writer's block. Finish your friggin' novel by Michael John Weber. That's me. And I'm just gonna delete all this, and we're gonna do this. Step 1. Oops. Don't use the shift key when you need to write the word but. Step 1. Write all the dialogue. Is that the right way to spell dialogue? No, obviously not. But that comes at the end in editing. Number 2, write the Rileys. And then number 3, write descriptive paragraphs. And 4, don't worry about editing until later. Okay. Now that's the first portion of Michael John Weber's theory of how to not get writer's block. Part 2 is don't write in a straight line. By that I mean don't start at page 1 and work your way to 300 in a linear fashion. Write chapters out of order, write everything out of order. You've already written the dialogue, the Rileys, and the descriptive paragraphs out of order. So why not write the chapters as they come to you? And then in editing, you sew them all together like you should. Okay, so I guess 1 does not a list make, but whatevs. So today, in lesson 3, in video 3 of Michael's TED Talk on how to be a weirdo writer, don't plan everything. Now, I don't get out much. I don't talk to a lot of people, quite honestly, because I'm too busy writing. But when I do happen to go out for coffee or chat with people, there's a lot of artists in this area, huge amount of artists, ridiculous. So whenever I talk to the writers around or the would-be writers, etc., and I'm not trying to be unkind, but none of them have finished a novel, which is partly why I'm on this subject. Second of all, they're all writing trilogies, which I mean, I think you people need to relax. Just try to finish 1 book first, and before you start filling your plate with 3. Are you kidding me? Goddamn. Okay, and then the third thing I notice is that they're all still planning. They're all planning, developing, brainstorming, taking notes, trying to get everything perfect before they plan it out. Now, it's not that bad an idea. Again, you have to at least think about your story before you write the shit. I mean, really, to a certain degree, right? But I think we all heard that, J.R.R. Tolkien spent 12 years building Middle-earth before he ever wrote The Hobbit, and now we all have to go do that and spend 12 years building a planet and a culture and etc. and a language just so that we can write a stupid novel. No, I don't. Yes, you can, and I'm not going to say that you should not, but while you're busy doing that, you're not writing. You're not writing your story, and that's what this is about. How to just write a novel from beginning to end. That's your job, right? So you spend all your time planning and daydreaming and, I don't know, looking for ideas and doing writing prompts and developing characters and giving them complex backstories. Yeah, that helps. But while you're doing that, you're not writing your story. Guess what? So don't plan everything. Personally, I plan about 25%. It's not hardly an accurate statistic, but based on looking at my notes and stuff like that, it seems to be about 25%. To be honest with you, I would say of all of that planning and notes that I've written for my project here, about 25% of the notes are wrong and never got used. Whole scenes, whole ideas, who's the main bad guy, it all changes. And the reason why I say 25%, you pick your own stupid percentage, partly is because while you're busy planning, you're not writing. But then, second of all, it takes away something. Geez, in Japanese calligraphy, they call it's something called the controlled accident, which I know sounds ridiculous because of language, but it's the accidental brush strokes. The little hairs on the calligraphy brush. You can't control all of them. They're kind of willy-nilly, and they sort of draw on the pages they want. And sometimes it's very beautiful, that these controlled accidents, things that just happened and yet somehow are beautiful. And in my experience as a writer, I very much see this. wherein, and this is my main example, wherein I just accidentally introduce an extra character on the stage, and somehow with zero planning, that character grows into not only a fully developed two-dimensional character on their own, but also moves the story more than an extra ever should, and indeed becomes a main character. Now, yes, I'm speaking of my own experiences, but in this one example specifically, and I have others, I put zero planning into this one character, and she showed up on the page without me knowing it, and turned into something just crazy and good and memorable for 6 books now, and I put zero effort into planning her. Whereas I have other characters that I put a bunch of effort into planning, and they either fall by the wayside or they do what they're supposed to do. But somehow the accident of just throwing an extra in because I thought I needed an extra in the scene, and so I was like, fine, whatever, we'll put her in, some girl named whatever, and I didn't care. I just needed an extra, and somehow that character grew. So the more you plan, the more you write in stone the way the world and the story and the characters are, that boxes them in, and they're not going to grow, right? They're not going to do things on their own. This, and it's a cliche where you say if you know your characters write well enough, they write the story for you, and it is so super true. It's not even funny. All right, I just have to put 2 characters into any situation because I know their personalities. I know exactly how they'll act and react and what they'll say and whether or not it just writes itself. It's stupid. So you should see the very first map I drew for the world I built, which I didn't even build until book, I don't know, 3, because I had to, right? Because I was like, well, geez, what is? And now that I'm into this deep, I guess I should decide whether or not there's an island over there or not, right? But the very first map I drew was just 5 words on a page, and lines dividing them, separating the 5 words. I had a word that said forest, a word that said swamp, a word that said field, a word that said mountains, a word that said desert, and that was my map. Now, after 6 books, I've sat down and I know now that there's a town over here because one day I was just writing and I was like, fuck it, there's a town here. and now that town is officially there for always. So it's planning in backwards, planning out of necessity maybe. Oh shit, I need a city here. Well, guess what? Here's a city. And you just summon one. Now, maybe this is something I learned from playing D&D and role-playing games like that. You can define and write a Dungeons and Dragons adventure in a linear fashion, but the players don't like that because it railroads their behaviors. If you're forcing them to go A to B to C through the storyline, the players are just bored, really. Maybe you can hide that linearness in the illusion of storytelling. But when I used to DM a lot or referee these games, so to say, back in the day, man, all I knew is that you guys were going to kill a dragon. And everything up to that point, I had no idea. That was up to you. And it didn't matter where you went or what you did, you would fight that dragon. I didn't plan whether or not the dragon was in the north or the south or the east or the west. It didn't matter because what if you put the dragon in the north and the player characters decide to go south? Now you're fucked. And you got to rewrite your whole story. So if you just pull the dragon out of your ass, the dragon is wherever you go. Wherever you end up, you'll find a big giant mountain full of treasure with a dragon in it. And so this is how I write. This is how I plan. I plan a dozen things I'd like to see, events along the way from chapter 1 to chapter whatever. And I write those. And then by necessity, they fill in the spaces between them. I don't know how. You just got to trust your characters and yourself to let it flow out of your pen or your keyboard, I suppose. I don't know. So there, in my last 30 seconds, I will say, please do not waste your time planning every iota of your story. You're just wasting time. You're not writing your story. Go write your damn story. Write 3 pages of notes and then shut the fuck up and start writing. Sit your ass down and do it. And I know maybe that's unkind and unfair. And, what if you don't know what to write next and blah, blah. You just got to think and plan it out. That's when the planning comes, is not before, but after, it seems. More planning comes while I'm writing it. You know, oh, I should say this on chapter 3. It's the setup payoff. Say this on chapter 3, and then it comes around in chapter 20. You know, that all happens while I'm writing, not before it. Okay. So try not to plan everything, because it's a waste of time, in my opinion. Hey, and if it's not a waste of time, in your opinion, you go plan the shit out of it. But like I said, while people are planning on writing trilogies, I've already finished the sectology. And whether or not it's good is not the question, it's finished. Okay, now I'm going to stop rambling. I'm Jesus.